Hi, my name is Danielle Fox, editor of Stringing Magazine. In the video that follows, I'll show you a tip or technique to inspire or inform your jewelry making skills. Crimping is the process of securely attaching a piece of flexible beading wire to a component, usually a clasp, using a crimp bead or crimp tube. Here in this project, you can see how I used crimp tubes to attach my beading wire to this clasp. Crimping is perhaps the most basic stringing technique and it's the most important to do correctly. To begin crimping, you should first select the proper crimp bead or crimp tube to use. You should know that often the terms crimp bead and crimp tube are used interchangeably. At Stringing Magazine, we call the small metal findings that look like this crimp beads, and the cylindrical metal findings that look like this crimp tubes. Crimp beads and crimp tubes come in all different sizes, from really tiny to extra large. 2 by 2 millimeter is the most basic size of crimp tube. That's what's right here, and that's what I use in most of my stringing projects. If you're confused about what size of crimp bead or crimp tube to use, I would recommend reading the packaging of your beading wire or going to the website of the wire manufacturer. To use a crimp bead or a twisted crimp tube, simply use your beading wire to string the crimp bead, then string 1/2 of your clasp. Pass back through the crimp bead, like so, and snug it up to your clasp. You want to make sure that it's close enough that there's not a lot of wire showing here, but far enough away that you allow some flexibility and movement in your clasp. Then you use a pair of chain or flat nose pliers to simply squeeze and flatten the crimp bead, trapping your wire. And then if you'd like, trim the wire, string your beads, and then when you get to the end, to desired length, string another crimp bead, the other half of your clasp, and repeat. To use a crimp tube, you'll need a tool called crimping pliers. Crimping pliers have 2 notches, a back notch and a front notch. This is a pair of standard crimping pliers for standard 2 by 2 millimeter crimp tubes and other standard sizes. They make larger mighty crimping pliers for larger crimp tubes and smaller micro crimping pliers for smaller crimp tubes. To crimp using crimping pliers and crimp tubes, start as you did with a crimp bead. Simply use your beading wire to string the crimp tube and 1/2 of the clasp. You'll pass the wire end back through the crimp tube and then snug it close to your clasp, making sure that the wires don't cross inside the crimp tube or else your crimping won't be as strong. Then you'll place the crimp tube in the back notch of your crimping pliers and squeeze. By doing so, you've trapped each of the wires in its own channel in the crimping tube. Then you'll turn at 90 degrees the crimp tube, kind of on its side like that. You'll place it in the front notch and squeeze once more. As you'll see, then you've kind of folded it over on itself, forming sort of a C shape with the crimp tube. You'll begin to string your beads, as many as you want again, to finish your necklace or bracelet. String another crimp tube and the other half of your clasp, and repeat the process again. Practice often and you'll soon be crimping like a pro.